welcome everyone. There are a lot of ways that I thought about approaching this talk on surrealism. You know, I thought about delivering the presentation backwards, or I really honestly considered just microdosing the coffee so everyone would start their Friday morning with like a really surreal experience. But so this image here is actually of Salvador Dali in a diving suit. It's from 1936, and it's funny. It's a funny story. He went to the store to buy this diving suit, and the salesman asked, how deep do you want to dive? And he said, I want to dive into the depths of the human subconscious. So he wore this suit during a lecture in which he was holding two dogs on a leash in one hand and a billiard cue in the other. And he had all of his slides presented upside down through the lecture. But he started suffocating slowly in the suit, and he actually passed out. And they had to pry off the helmet with the billiard cue. And he went on and finished the lecture like nothing happened. So I thought about doing that as well, but it's already been done before. And it's hard as a curator because sometimes I struggle with if everything's already been done before and what I can present or talk about that's new or an original idea. So if that's the case and everything's already been done before, I thought I'd really just start off with a Beach Boys song that I think kind of sums up my life and is the framework for this presentation. I keep looking for a place to fit where I can speak my mind. I've been trying hard to find the people that I won't leave behind. They say I got brains, but they ain't doing me no good. I wish they could. Each time things start to happen again, I think I got something good going for myself, but what goes wrong? Sometimes I feel very sad. Can't find nothing I can put my heart and soul into. Every time I get the inspiration to go change things around, no one wants to help me look for places where new things might be found. I guess I just wasn't made for these times. So this lecture that Salvador Dali gave as part of this 1936 exhibition of surrealism in London was really this big show that was meant to put surrealism on the map globally. It had artists, like Dali, Picasso, Magritte, De Chirico, Man Ray, Duchamp, and it was this huge show. And the exhibition catalog said, "Do not judge this movement kindly. It is not just another amusing stunt. It is defiant, the desperate act of men too profoundly convinced of the rottenness of our civilization to want to save a shred of its respectability." So surrealism was really meant to start a revolution. It's destructive, but it destroys only what it considers to be the shackles limiting our vision. And honestly, I don't think there's anything more surreal than the times that we live in, or the fact that I'm even up here on this stage speaking to you. I hate public speaking, yet here I am. I mean, even the fact that we're all here at all, we're made of stardust. That's such a surreal concept. And looking back over the last 38 years, I never really saw myself anywhere, and certainly not Tucson of all places. But here I am. All right. So the word surrealism wasn't even used until 1917, just over 100 years ago. It was coined by the poet Apollinaire in collaboration with Cocteau for a ballet parade that was Picasso did the scenery for, Eric Satie scored the music for with typewriters, sirens, airplane propellers, Morse code tickers, lottery wheels, and two pianos. And I find it fascinating that the word didn't exist until 1917, when we had writers like Oscar Wilde and Lewis Carroll writing the century before, and Hieronymus Bosch creating weird paintings like this in the 15th century. I love his paintings. I just can't believe that they were made, 600 plus years ago now. Like the bird man eating the guy with the birds flying out of its butt, that's great. And I also like the bottom area with the puking, shitting duo, that's key. Like that was made like before 1500. It's amazing. So when Surrealism came around in the 1920s, it really changed everything in the art world as it had been known to that time, including the way art was even defined. It combined elements of Dada and Cubism to create something entirely new. And Dada, I'm sure you know, was the movement just before that, you know, the artists were really disgusted with World War I and with life in general. They thought the culture had lost its meaning, so they wanted to create anti-art or non-art. And Dada itself is just like a baby talk word that they made up to show their feelings with the art world. And interestingly, I think Dada was really born from hate, whereas Surrealism is much less violent. It was started as a way to combine the conscious and subconscious into a new absolute reality. So Surrealism is really about nonconformity and psychic automatism. It's about speaking your thoughts as soon as they appear in your mind. Whoops, all right. So in 1924, the poet André Breton wrote his first of two manifestos on Surrealism. And in it he said, "So strong is the belief in life, in what is most fragile in life, real life I mean, that in the end this belief is lost. Man, that inveterate dreamer, daily more discontent with his destiny, has trouble assessing the objects he has been led to use, objects that his nonchalance has brought his way or that he has earned through his own efforts, almost always through his own efforts. At this point, he feels extremely modest. He knows what women he has had, what silly affairs he has been involved in. He is unimpressed by his wealth or his poverty. In this respect, he is still a newborn babe. And as for the approval of his conscience, I confess that he does very nicely without it. There, the absence of any known restrictions allows him the perspective of several lives lived at once. This illusion becomes firmly rooted within him. Now he is only interested in the fleeting, the extreme facility of everything. Children set off each day without a worry in the world. Everything is near at hand. The worst material conditions are fine. The woods are white or black. One will never sleep." And I question, in all honesty, though it can point to tangible things here or there, how did any of us really get here to this space or time? You know, Breton speaks to turning back to your childhood and the perspective of living several lives at once. Surrealism is just a thin line between fact and fiction, in between waking and dreaming, an unleashing of the subconscious. Surrealism's actual definition is marked by the intense irrationality of a dream. As a child, and even still today, I loved Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which I think is a brilliant piece of surrealist literature well before surrealism was even, you know, coined a term. I quote from it all the time, and this is a quote that I say all the time. You begin at the beginning, the king's, well, here it says, begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end, and then stop. So I always say this. I think it's like this rational, but like, it's like, oh yeah, like where do you start? You start at the beginning, and you go on to the end, and you stop. However, most people would say that time is an illusion. It's a naive perception that rarely corresponds to our physical reality. No observer has knowledge of a distant event or the simultaneity of different events until they are unambiguously in our past. So why don't we start at the end and end at the beginning? So maybe this is the end, who knows? So in 2018, Merriam-Webster's word of the year was justice. In 2017, it was feminism. But in 2016, what do you think Merriam-Webster's word of the year was? Guess.
Fashion.
No, these are all very good guesses. No, it was surreal. That was the word of the year in 2016. So I think it's interesting. It points to this interesting progression in the past 2 years where many of us are finally waking up from the numbness built by our junk culture. Many of us felt the grounds of reality shift beneath us as what we thought might only be a bad dream became a full-on waking nightmare. These two time covers are inspired by Dali's most iconic painting, The Persistence of Memory. Instead of melting clocks, here we have Trump's melting face. These covers came out in August and October of 2016, and I don't think at that time anyone knew how surreal things were about to get. But here's the surreal thing about the times we live in. They are at once astonishingly frightening and completely stupid. And maybe it's just the banality of evil. I don't know. Let's see. So there's this quote that Dali would say all the time that I feel like it's something Trump would say, and I think there's a lot of interesting correlations between the two. He would say, like, he was quoted all the time saying this, "I am the most big genius of modern time." The most big. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. But even if Dali was a genius, his public persona obscured that. Most people would say that he peaked artistically in his 20s, then gave way to exhibitionism and greed. It also sounds pretty familiar, like someone else. So I think events like this are why I was probably asked to come here. Surrealists like Dali and Breton sought to channel the unconscious as a means to unlock the power of the imagination. They often use hypnotism and drugs to venture into a dream world. I like to create experiences where it feels like you're on drugs all the time. Influenced by psychoanalytics and Freud, surrealists in the 1920s believed the rational mind repressed the power of the imagination, weighing it down with taboos. So as a curator, I'm still trying to discover what is taboo in the art world, how far I can push the boundaries. Is it writhing in peanut butter, donning the skin of a celebrity, highlighting the literal garbage they're perpetuating? This is from our fall fundraiser in September. Perhaps it's taboo to urinate on the floor of the museum while invoking a curse on our corporate masters. I don't know. I want people to feel uncomfortable because at least they're feeling something. They're waking up. Maybe it's taboo to cut yourself and turn yourself into a human printing press. This is a piece that Ron Athey did for us on December 1st in the Lung of the Biosphere. It was in honor of World AIDS Day, which was first performed in 1994. At the time, when he first did this in 1994, he hasn't done it since then, it was definitely considered taboo and sensational. It lost him his NEA funding. Politicians claimed he was exposing people to AIDS. And today it's part of the art history canon, and no one felt uncomfortable by this, what I consider a very beautiful performance. So I'm not really sure what taboos there are still there. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I sort of happened into all of this. My parents wanted me to be like a famous musician or something, but I hated performing in front of people. I mentioned I hate talking in front of people. I'm doing it okay, hopefully. I hated performing in front of people because it was just that. It was performance. It was fake. It wasn't real. It wasn't me. And it's funny in hindsight because I really started my career as a curator of performance art, and it's something, I'm still drawn to and keep coming back to. It's the uncomfortability that I now hurl myself towards and hurl at others. It's visceral. It's in your face. It's not a pretty picture. It's real life turned on its head. And I still remember this conversation with my mother talking about what I wanted to study in college. And I just told her I wanted to be around interesting people. That's all I wanted. I want to be around interesting people. So she told me, study art history, and then you can be around artists. I was like, okay. So I didn't even know that was an option. I grew up in a world that just seems so like cold and gray, and it never occurred to me. It sounds so crazy now because my life is surrounded by artists. I never thought that there were people that were like making art, and bringing color into the world. It was like, I liken my experiences to a lot of movies because I was raised by TV and MTV, but I felt like Dorothy going to Oz for the first time. Like the first time I went into a museum or a gallery, it really changed my life. These papers are sticky. So how we all got here seems really simple. Perhaps it is, perhaps it isn't. Is that really how we got here, though? Is that how I got here? One conversation with my mother. Maybe, as Breton mentions, I've lived several lives at once. I'm going to get personal for a moment. I thought about cutting this out, but I'm just going to barrel through it, so deal with it. I may never see you again. Hopefully I do. Come to Mocha Tucson. We're great. I want to see you all the time. So I didn't really grow up feeling much of anything. I felt a lot of disillusionment and anger, knowing that I didn't belong anywhere. I didn't belong in my family. I didn't belong where I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. And all my life, my heart has yearned for a thing I cannot name. My first memories include watching the Challenger explode, my sister dying, and instead of my parents talking to me about it, they brought me home a robot. True story. This is an actual painting that my friend Lisa Levy, she's a great artist in New York. Maybe some of you know her. She's the self-proclaimed psychotherapist. She does these psychotherapy sessions and she makes artworks based on them. And she sort of distilled all of my problems into one succinct statement. My best friend growing up was a fucking robot. It's true. I'm totally normal. On my 5th birthday, my parents threw a bag over my head in the car screaming, "We're all going to die." We didn't. They drove into the parking lot of Chuck E. Cheese and threw a surprise birthday party for me. It wasn't called Chuck E. Cheese at the time. It was actually Showbiz Pizza. I don't understand how Showbiz Pizza got kicked out of the band. Chuck E. Cheese is the leader now. Something happened in the 80s. Band broke up. And when I was 10, I had to start working to pay the bills. I was dumped in a field to pick strawberries with migrant farm workers where I had to piss outside getting paid 25 cents a pint. At 13, I would snowmobile to my job at the roadhouse that sold drugs from the restaurant. Drunken old men grabbing at me, bikers taking me for rides after work and getting me high. But at least I could get free tattoos by a dude named Squirrely. It was pretty great. On the weekends, we would take acid and drive to Cabrini Green for some rave in a burned-out basement, scoring drugs or whatever else was cheap and available and make us forget. Joints dipped in embalming fluid or laced with angel dust. There was also that life that I barely remember where I was severely beaten for years and years until the last time where I was dragged to the alley naked and left for dead. My parents, who hadn't spoken in years, driving to Chicago to pick me up and put me back together again. I don't actually know if that was the last time. Breton says in his Surrealist manifesto, though he may later try to pull himself together on occasion, having felt that he is losing by slow degrees all reason for living, incapable as he has become of being able to rise to some exceptional situation such as love, he will hardly succeed. This is because he henceforth belongs body and soul to an imperative practical necessity, which demands his constant attention. None of his gestures will be expansive, none of his ideas generous or far-reaching. In his mind's eye, events real or imagined will be seen only as they relate to a welter of similar events in which he has not participated, abortive events. What am I saying? He will judge them in relationship to one of these events whose consequences are more reassuring than the others. On no account will he view them as his salvation. Beloved imagination, what I most like in you is your unsparing quality. I fortunately have been blessed with a vivid imagination, an ability to see clearly forwards and backwards, inwards and outwards. I've lived many lives physically and mentally, awake and asleep. Each night I sleep, I travel to other countries, read entire books, go on some epic quest. Breton also says the mind of the man who dreams is fully satisfied by what happens to him. The agonizing question of possibility is no longer pertinent. Kill, fly faster, love to your heart's content. And if you should die, are you not certain of reawakening among the dead? Let yourself be carried along. Events will not tolerate your interference. You are nameless. The ease of everything is priceless. It is that anonymous, easy life that I've always sought. I want to be in the background, making people's dreams come true. I don't think as a society we adequately support our artists. I think anyone can choose to be an accountant or a dentist, but you can't choose to be an artist. Art chooses you. Because there's so little agency, the least we can do as a society is help artists create, help them live. It was one of the first professions in humans' existence, and I can assure you it's going to be one of the last. I may not have had much in my life, but at least I've had my mind, my imagination, my dreams. I want to create experiences for people. I want people to truly feel something when they come to one of my exhibitions or performances. I want to control what they're going to see and hear and smell. I want to be the creator of universes. And why not? Why can't I? My mother was a Christian Scientist, but also deeply involved in paganism. I was raised to believe in mind over matter, that anything was possible, that you can rise above with nothing other than the belief in your inner power. Many surrealists, too, were steeped in magical ideas that were expressed in their art: the sorcery of Dali, the alchemy of Picasso, the theosophy of Kandinsky, the shamanism of Ernst and Carrington. The occult played a huge role in surrealism, particularly under the leadership of Breton. Surrealists experimented with automatic writing, and many surrealist and occult philosophies are completely interchangeable. But how do we even know that this, right now, is the reality? We live in times where the blurring between fact and fiction doesn't even matter anymore. For some, this is paradise, but for others, it's just hell on earth, and honestly, I'd have to agree. War, famine, children with cancer, that is surreal. So going back to 2016, the year of the surreal, I wonder what surreal solutions we've come up with since then to counteract our current political climate. Where is existence? Where is elsewhere? Where can we truly live? I know I was asked here because people think that my exhibitions and programs are fun and kooky, but underneath all of that is a call to action, an opportunity for people to be asked to wake up. Sometimes I question the importance of what I do in light of what's going on in the world, thinking, oh, well, it's just art. But art fosters empathy. Art gets us to think differently and devise creative solutions for the problems of today and tomorrow. Art is one of the only real things I know. So I started with a song, and I like to end with a poem. And in 1873, Arthur O'Shaughnessy wrote Ode, which is famously quoted in one of my favorite films of all time. Literally, my whole life, I feel like I've lived through these films. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, great film. And it's a surreal film. The more I think about it, if I can point to any one thing that really made me want to be a curator, it was Willy Wonka. He taught me to create the world that I want to live in, that anything is possible. He brought magic and color to a dreary world. I was Charlie Bucket, but I knew one day I would be Wonka. So this poem is for all of you. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, on whom the pale moon gleams. Yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities, and out of our fabulous story, we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and three with a new song's measure can trample an empire down. We in the ages lying in the buried past of the earth built Nineveh with our sign and Babel itself with our mirth, and overthrew them with prophesying to the old of the new world's worth, for each age is a dream that is dying or one that is coming to birth. And I think it's just a beautiful poem written by a man who died at 36, who really envisioned a world very different than the one that he was living in. So, come to the opening at MoCA next Saturday on a high note. The opening Saturday night, January 19th. It's 100 years of Dazzle Camouflage and art, music, and design. It's a collaboration with the band OMD, Peter Seville, and Memphis Design, and I hope you like it. See you around.